Hey, it's Becky. I just got an email from a mom that was overwhelmed with homeschool planning. So I wanted to share there's many ways to map out your homeschool year. But when you're brand new and you're trying to fit all the things in your schedule, one of the things that you can do is you can just get some Post-its and you can start to map out your week so that you can start to see the pockets of time that you have to actually teach your kids. So a simple piece of paper or a whiteboard. Love my whiteboard. There's a chair in front of it right now, so I can't reach it. But so you could know if you have something that's just an absolute given, like in our house, it might be prayer time or Bible time or math, any of those things. So you can write those in. And then on your Post-its, start writing the other subjects that the area of learning that you want your kids to actually be learning. So you've got math, you have history, you have reading. I'm not going to do it neat. I've got writing. I've got science. Gonna stop you right there. If you're new to homeschooling, try to stick to the core four at first, not including Bible, math, English, which is reading and writing, history, and science. Add music, art, basket weaving, and all the other things after you map out the core four. And you can even weave those things in to these different topics. But let's just talk about these for a second. When I look at the core four, knowing what I know about having taught homeschool for 25 years, I would recommend that you do some kind of math every single day. Say that with me. Every single day. Some kind of math. It could be that you play Monopoly. It could be that you play cards and you are doing drills with your math facts. So you're going to do math every single day. I'm almost there. I hope I have enough Post-its. Okay. Notice I left Friday blank. Okay. Then I'm going to take my reading one. I'm actually going to divide it. So I'm going to, because I don't think I have enough Post-its, but we're going to read every single day. Every single day. Every single day. We're going to read, or we're going to do a read aloud that we're listening to together. Brilliant idea is just to have a read aloud. And I used to do this with my kids, so I guess that makes me brilliant too. We would have a read aloud going in the car. And every time we'd go on an errand, we would listen to a read aloud. So minimally, we would get 10 or 15 minutes worth of a read aloud every day. So you take your big, this is like rough lesson planning. So in your core four, these things say reading. You have your Bible or your prayer or your circle time, whatever you're doing to kind of focus on your hearts with your kids. You do that first or at a particular time in the day. You do math every day. This doesn't tell you when, but you do math every day. You read every day. And now you have these other things. These are in your core four. You have writing, you have history, you have science. Based on your family, your kids, I would recommend at least minimally you do doesn't matter what day of the week, but you do history one day a week and you do science one day a week. If you're brilliant, have your history be part of the reading, because then it overlaps. Or you could do history reading on another day. So you know that reading is part of the magic of homeschooling, and it helps you double up on things all the time. So You have one solid day of history, one solid day of science, minimally, right? You can easily do history one day a week if you have a core block of time, a couple hours where you're just focused on whatever it is you're doing. Hopefully you're doing some kind of secret sauce thing and you are working on the research or pulling the materials or working on your project. So history one day a week, science one day a week. Writing, remember the 3 no-nos of writing. So your kids should always be writing. Maybe it's just 5 minutes of free journaling a day. Maybe it's a writing project, something that you've decided. There are so many different ways to write. You could practice writing social media posts. You could practice writing formal letters, technical writing, text messages, friendly letters, essays, book reports, research projects, right? All the traditional stuff. But there are so many things. You can practice writing recipes and checklists and instructions for how to do something. So with your writing, you're going to have some kind of thing that you want your kids to do. Writing is a process. Unless they're very little and they're just learning how to write their letters and write words out so that they're legible, like that kindergarten, first grade stuff. That's like basic writing stuff. But once they actually start writing, they have 1 or 2 simple things. My kids always journaled every day. It was a free journaling, and I would say things like, it's okay if you don't have anything to write about. I'm going to set a timer. Your job is to have your pencil go until the timer dings. And yes, drawing is writing. Say that with me. Drawing is writing. So with boys, a lot of times they would do comic strips and action things that were going on, and they had to visualize it before they could write it in words. So understand, having a discipline of daily writing. If you want to be an excellent writer, then you write. It's the only way. It's like Stephen is rowing, and rowing is a rowing sport. If he wants to get better at rowing, he actually has to row. He can't run and bike. That will make him stronger, but it won't make him a better rower. Writing is like that too. You have to write in order to grow your writing skills. So you pick a writing thing that your kids are going to be working on. Maybe it's a friendly letter to grandma. Maybe it's the grocery list for the week from a menu, and then you're pulling the items and stuff from the grocery list. So you have a writing project then that you work on a little bit every day of the week. So I'm not going to write this, but I'm going to put it here on Thursday. This would actually get mapped out where you would introduce the idea and brainstorm. Let's write that down. So we'll write writing. Ooh, a branch just fell. Oh no, it's a squirrel. Just jumped massively out of a tree. So you're going to do your brainstorm. Never skip. I'm just going to write the word brain. Never skip brainstorming with your kids. When you do this kind of stuff where you're mapping stuff out, that's writing for the day. You need time to just think of the wild ideas and come up with the crazy vocabulary words and kind of just see where your imagination goes, no matter what kind of writing you're doing. So dedicate a day of just brainstorming. Then you would do some kind of organization. I'll just write the word organ. Some kind of organization. Then we're going to write the word draft. And we're going to write polish. So this is a basic homeschool lesson plan where you know that you have Bible every day, you know you're going to do math every day, you know you're going to read or listen to stories every day, but you're going to be smart and you're going to connect your stories to whatever you're reading or writing, right? So that has that golden connection. You're going to map out hardcore 4 days of homeschooling a week minimum, and this doesn't take all day. And then you're going to leave a fun day in your week so that you can, this is where you can add in things like art and music. It can be any day of the week, or it can be a catch-up day. If you guys decide to go to a museum on this day, then you just have that filler day. you really do have the ability to do 5 math lessons or stay on track with math 4 days a week. If you want to stay strict 5 days a week, then you just add another day for these things. But you could do reading every day. You can do history 1 or 2 days a week, science 1 or 2 days a week. And then this idea goes with secret sauce. So say for history, what you're going to do at the end of the year, say you have your master golden thread. Where's my camera? Your master golden thread is to host a feast. What did I say? Organize and prepare, serve a meal or a feast. Say this is your project that you're working on, but you're doing it with the golden thread of history. Then this whole thing, this writing project, creating the menu, becomes the history. So this actually then starts to overlap, and you are brainstorming and collecting ideas for that topic in history. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up or a heart if this makes sense. And then you start to work on the actual project. If it's a big project, like a secret sauce project, then this whole brainstorming and organizing might be a complete week or 2 in your lesson planner. The researching and adding and drafting might take another week or 2. And then this whole idea of polishing is that the kids are taking their drafts, they're correcting their spelling, and they're adding images and color and art, and they're polishing it. And then I would add, especially with a project, that you add some element where the kids stand up and present it to somebody. So there's a present element to it. Does that make sense? So one of the homeschool moms is brand new to homeschooling, and she started to fill out her lesson planner. Very, very common to start to go, okay, we're going to do Bible, math, history, science, reading, writing, grammar, art, music, 5 days a week. And then you start filling stuff out, and sweat breaks out on your forehead, and you start to hyperventilate a little bit. It's crazy. You really can slow down. Sometimes you can do history 1 week and then science the next week. It does work out that way. So anyway, that's one of the ways that I personally did some of my homeschool stuff, was I used Post-its because I'm old. And so in the old days when we would write papers, we would write them double spaced on actual pieces of paper. We would cut them apart and then rearrange the pieces on the table, and then we would tape or paste them together. Is very much, that's why it's cut and paste, because that's what we used to do when we were little or in high school. We couldn't do it on the computer. And sometimes it helps to go old school, because you can step back from it and you can go, okay, wait, I don't have to do all the things every single day. So I hope that helps, and I especially hope that helps you if you are brand new to this whole thing of lesson planning. Everybody's different. You may want to do all the things on all the days. I really would recommend that you evaluate how that goes in your house for a week or 2 and see where your joy level is and see where your kids' interest level is. That personal inventory of, hey, how's it going? Super important for us to do every couple weeks, so that we don't accidentally spend a whole year doing a whole bunch of stuff without learning anything except that we don't like learning. Like, that's not the goal. The goal is to fall in love with learning. And you and I both know that in order to fall in love with learning, we need space. We need time. We actually need, just like if you're typing on the computer, hey Priscilla, just like if you're typing on the computer, you create the space between the letters. That's called white space. Our life needs white space in it. So when you're mapping out your homeschool year, or you're mapping out your week, make sure that you have white space. You don't have to fill in all the hours of the day with learning, with academics, paperwork, school looking stuff. Instead, if this was a day, you can imagine taking your Bible and the reading, that you have a connection to history. You take your Bible, you're reading to the park with a pad of paper. You spread out a blanket and you do Bible and you do your reading for the day, and you talk about, hey, the writing project that we're going to be working on is a checklist for, not even a checklist, you just pick one. We're going to, maybe it's a friendly letter. So we're going to write a friendly letter to our friend Miss Becky in Washington, and we're going to tell her about what we're learning in history. And so what kinds of things would be, and you just talk about it, what kinds of things would we want to be sharing with her that she might find interesting? And you would be pulling those from the actual book, and you'd be heading toward that goal. But you're at the park. How cool is that? So that could even be the middle of the day. Maybe you don't even have to do it first, but you could do that part of the day at the park, and then all you have to do is find an hour, 20 minutes, depending on what you're doing, to do math in the day. And voila, you have completed a homeschool day. The next day, you're like, ooh, we're going to be doing a science experiment, but we're going to follow the scientific method. So we're going to be looking at what happens when you add, if you soak raisins in vinegar and you put it in a different kind of solution and then you drop it in the solution, what do you think is going to happen? Can we get the raisins to jump up and down? And so you can talk about what it is that you're going to be doing. Why would that be interesting? Setting up the experiment, gathering the materials, and say, okay, we're going to do that on Fun Friday. We're going to do some hands-on fun on Friday. But today is all about gathering the materials. So stretch out your learning. And I'll end with this. One of the things that I struggled with, that I have found to not just be a Bekki Sayler struggle, is rushing through the learning in order to do this. Done. Homeschool moms love check marks. We love to check stuff off and say, hey, we did school today. And so what that would mean is that I'd hand the kids a piece of paper. I'd expect them to do a writing assignment. We wouldn't have talked about it. And they sit there and they stare and they whine and they complain. Instead of taking the time to actually build up the excitement toward the thing, whatever the thing is, whether it's science or history or writing or reading, if I could breathe this over you today, it would be the message that it's okay to go slower than you think is okay. Give your kids space to think. Give your kids time to dream. Give yourself time to do the fun things, the hands-on things, and recognize that it's a learning process. You didn't learn to tie your shoes the first time somebody put laces in your hand. No, you had to learn that first you make the X, right? That's all you do is make the X, and then you do the thing. And then you just didn't do it the first time that you sat down. You don't sit down and write an essay about something that you don't care about or that you don't know about. Instead, if you spent 99% of your time brainstorming and gathering information with your kids, you will not be able to keep up with their curiosity. You will not be able to contain their need to actually turn it into something. You know, they know they need to write. They know they need to write a creative story, but the paper is haunting them. But if instead you are outside and you're talking about all the different kinds of rocks and sticks and bugs and birds and bats that are in your backyard, and you talk about where you live on the planet and what the weather's like and what it's going to be like, you know, in the fall, and what's the scariest kind of weather that comes through. And then on the next day, you talk about different kinds of challenges which is your favorite thing in that environment? Maybe it's the deer. We have 3 bucks that walk through our yard, so we could talk about the deer and what the biggest challenge for the deer might be in the day. And you're just brainstorming, what kinds of trouble do you think a deer could, what would a good name for a deer be? You're just brainstorming. You're just brainstorming, and you're writing down the ideas, and you're like, okay. So, and then the next day you're talking about it again. Do we even know all the parts of a deer? What are the different parts of a deer? You've got the head, you've got the body, you've got are they feet? Do deers have feet? Do they have hooves? What do they have? What are those pointy things on their heads? Oh, antlers. So you're just gathering vocabulary. Oh, that's great. Wouldn't it be interesting if suddenly in the deer's environment, some strange thing landed into their environment? What would be strange to a deer? Talking. What would be strange to a deer? Man, I wonder what would happen if a satellite, instead of orbiting in space, just started orbiting in the front yard. What would the deer do with the satellite? Do you think it would want to get on board and take a ride? What do you think would happen? Like, okay, and then the next day you can say, okay, we're gonna write a little creative story. And remember all the things we saw in the yard. Remember all the stuff we talked about a deer and the strange objects that the deer has to encounter. I want you to think of something different than the satellite. What would be weird for the deer to be minding his own business? Just there I was, walking through the backyard, chewing on the leaves, when all of a sudden, let's all write that story. And now the kids are like, oh, I know. Mine's gonna have a jetpack fall from the sky and suddenly he's flying, right? So you wet their whistle over a few days, you being the secretary. Don't make them write that stuff down. Don't do it. That's what whiteboards are for. That's what Post-its are for. That's what your hand is for. You collect all the fun ideas. And then you sit down and you write something super cool. You don't just hand them a piece of paper and say, write a creative story, I'll be back in 20 minutes, right? So that idea of slowing down feels counterintuitive because we're chasing the check mark. We want to check off that they did writing. In fact, writing is a process, and most writing will come to your kids because you marinated them in fun stories, marinated them in language that's above their pay grade. You brainstormed ideas, you brainstormed settings and plots and vocabulary, and then you be sneaky, you come up with a fun, creative prompt that gets it started, jump starts them, and then you let them go. If they're young, you finish the story. Does that make sense? So I hope that helps. Love you guys. I will talk to you later. Bye.